Welcome to this webinar organized by Eurofish in the FAO Subregional Office for Central Asia. It is about success stories involving small-scale fisheries from 5 sea basins in Europe. These are the Adriatic Sea, the Black Sea, the Baltic, the Mediterranean, and the North Sea. My name is Behnan Thomas. I work for Eurofish. And in my day job, I'm the editor of the Eurofish magazine. I will be moderating this webinar. Small-scale fisheries are responsible for 40% of the global fisheries catch, and they account for 9/10 of the employment in capture fisheries value chains. About half of these people are women. These fisheries supply consumers with helpful proteins and micronutrients. In other words, they offer nutritional security, economic well-being, as well as, because of their low impact, environmental sustainability. However, small-scale fishermen or small-scale fishing communities are often poor and marginalized and do not have a say in the decisions, in the economic and political decisions that are taken that affect them. But there are also positive stories to tell. There are also positive stories to tell, and it is these that we want to highlight in this webinar. We want to show how fishing communities, fisheries managers, NGOs, scientists, and other stakeholders can get together to make changes, positive changes, that impact those who need them the most. I hope these presentations that you will see today will illustrate how things can be done to benefit this important sector. I will now pass the floor to Marco Frederiksen, the director of Eurofish, to say a few words. Marco?
Dear attendees, my name is Marco Frederiksen, and I'm the director of Eurofish International Organization. I would like to welcome you to this webinar co-organized by Eurofish and FAO, and we have 122 participants from 35 countries that have signed up for the webinar today. I would particularly like to acknowledge participants from the 13 Eurofish member countries who represent ministries, the industry, and associations. I would also like to warmly welcome the representatives from other countries and to our close cooperation partners, FAO, GFCM, from our global fish info network, and many others. I'm delighted that you could participate in this webinar. We chose the subject, success stories from sustainable artisanal fisheries in Europe, to highlight the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. In the EU, small-scale fisheries employ about 80,000 fishers, contributing to just under 50% of the total employment in EU fisheries. Small-scale fisheries are especially important in the Mediterranean, where over half of the sector is concentrated and where it has played a dominant role in the economics of coastal communities for centuries, providing livelihoods and nutritional security. Success stories from sustainable artisanal fisheries from 5 sea areas in Europe will be presented today, and I hope this can be an inspiration for the development of this very important sector in your own countries. I wish you all a very fruitful outcome of this webinar. And I'll give the word back to Behnan.
Thank you, Marco. We will now present a film, a very brief film from the FAO.
Actions can have big impact, like a ripple effect. Small-scale fishing and aquaculture can bring food to one family and provides healthy nutrition to millions more. It brings value to all. Small-scale fishers and fish farmers also know what it means to preserve the balance in our ecosystem. But our livelihoods are at risk. Now, more than ever, we need to be resilient, include us in decisions that affect us, and we will adapt and innovate with the changing tide. We may be small in scale, but our way of life will keep on making a difference and spread like ripples in the water.
Well, thank you for that film. Before, one short point of housekeeping before we go further. And that is, if there are any questions, please put them into the chat. And now I will pass the floor to you, Ante. Ante Sladoljev.
Yes.
Is the head of the Fisheries Local Action Group Galeb in Croatia and chairman of the Croatian Flag Network. His presentation is from the Adriatic Sea. Over to you, Ante.
Thank you, Mr. Behnan. Good morning to you all. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you, Eurofish, for inviting me to be a speaker at this really important and interesting webinar. I will talk to you about 3 success stories from the Adriatic Sea, so we can start it. I will share the screen. Just a minute. I will share the presentation. Okay. So do you see the presentation or? Yes. Okay, great. Well, the first success story is transformation of small-scale fishermen through European Maritime and Fisheries Fund. Unfortunately, fishermen in Mediterranean countries don't use funding available from the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund to become more sustainable, especially small-scale fishermen, so basically those funds remain unspent. Well, we wanted to change this in our area, so we started with numerous workshops, educations for fishermen for developing and submitting EMF requests, but nothing happened. We didn't have any success. They weren't proactive, so we had to change the approach. Instead of, let's say, just talking to them, I said, okay, I will work with one fisherman. I will submit a request for only one fisherman, and perhaps others will follow. So I chose the biggest skeptic of them all and told him, okay, so just give me your time, just give me the documents that are needed for the request, and we will make only one request, and we will see what happens. So I will show you that biggest skeptic. Just a minute. So it's you can see him here. His name is Nino Murica. He's a small-scale fisherman from Vodice in Dalmatia. He has a very small boat, only 9 meter long, and he uses set nets as a tool. His, let's say, most important catch is a lobster. So back in 2017, when I first met him, when I talked to him about the European Maritime and Fisheries Funds and the possibilities, he would come up with all kinds of excuses, saying this is impossible, this was impossible. But I think the biggest problem was a lack of trust in institutions. But that's how you always start with the fishermen. You first listen to them, you listen to their problems, and then you try to offer solutions for those problems and see if those problems can be solved through EMFF. So you can see here one of his excuses. He would say, these are the excuses that an average fisherman in our area most likely in other countries also would come up with. So, you know, that's for big players. Others told me it was impossible. We don't need the European Union to shape our fishery policy. Nothing is for free. I never received anything from my country or the European Union. I will attract various inspections and so on and so on and so on. So that will go, you know, for hours talking to him. And then if we move back forward to 2019.
Ante, can you make it full screen? Can you?
Okay, I will try.
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay?
I don't see it yet.
Okay, just a second. Just a second. I will try to do this. Share. Do you see it now?
Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
Do you see now these excuses? Yes. Okay, so yeah, these were the excuses I was talking about. So he would come up with a lot of them every day for hours and hours for all the meetings we had. And, you know, so this was in 2017. And if you know, if we go fast forward to 2019, this is the same person in Brussels on a conference organized by DG Mare. And he was basically praising EMFF, praising DG Mare, praising Croatian managing authorities, praising FLAG. He was speaking in a couple of 100 participants. So yes, you can see him here, totally changed person. So what happened in those 2 years that turned him from a skeptic into basically a promoter of European Maritime Fisheries Fund? Well, this happened. We made 4 applications. We submitted them to MFF, and all 4 applications went through. And this is the equipment that he was granted. So he got a vehicle with a refrigerator, he got a radar, he got an autopilot, a bow thruster, and the new cabin windows. So if we look at him as, let's say, 2017, his weaknesses were insufficient funds for business. He was unable to add value and preserve catch quality. His vessel was old and had inadequate conditions on board. He was, because of the low prices, he was basically fishing as much as he could, and his business was uncertainty. So with these 4 applications, we turned his weaknesses into advantages. So his grants were provided. He could preserve product quality. He could add value to his products. He modernized his vessel, improved safety, expanded his market. He achieved better energy efficiency, lower fuel consumptions, and he could now plan long termly, which is really important for the fishermen, and that they have the business stability, and that they can grow each year more and more and more. But this wasn't enough. So basically, in 2021, I didn't need to convince him anymore. You know, he came to me alone, and he said, "Okay, can we apply more requests?" And I said, "Okay, let's do it." So in 2021, we applied for new MFF applications, and this equipment was granted. So he got, for added value and quality of the product, he got ice machine, thermal box. For the energy efficiency, he received solar panels for renewable energy and min quota. And for health and safety, he got all these various equipment. So GPS, navigation, anti-slip coating, gas stove, cabin winter, security camera, anchor winch, life belts, crew food, refrigerator, wiper blades. So for a small scale fisherman to receive all these equipment, it was a huge step for him. And if we count all this in aid through EMFF, he received more than, let's say, 70,000 euros. And for a small scale fisherman, we totally changed his mindset over this. So, but I think the biggest success of this is that other fishermen followed him. He saw, of course, that it was possible. He saw all the equipment he received, and they reached to us to help them. So, you know, I can talk about many other fishermen and projects we have worked with and developed their business with the help of European Fisheries and Maritime Fund. But let me just mention one really important one that's really, let's say, for me important. And it was that we applied the project for implementing more selective tool. And we are talking about creel for catching scampi with a bigger mesh. For a bigger mesh that is 40 millimeters instead of 36 millimeters that he was using until then. You can see here it's a fisherman Shime Baric. He's catching scampis, and the results were remarkable. So basically here we received 300 creels. He implemented more selective tools. His fishing impact is basically minimal. He's catching now bigger scampis with higher values. He's reducing the number of discards. And also one of important results is that he needed to collaborate with the science in order to confirm the results. That was basically the condition of the EMFF, and the partnership between fishermen and the science is really important. So other fishermen from his area, he's catching scampis in Velebit Channel, are following him, and we will help them to apply also to implement more selective tools. So let's go to a second success story. It's establishing a fisheries cooperative. The lack of fisheries cooperatives is one of the biggest challenges for fisheries in Croatia, we can say. So it's clear for us what needs to be done to further develop Croatian fisheries towards sustainability. I believe that it's much harder, or we can say impossible, to achieve sustainability without fishermen joining either cooperatives, either producers organizations, either clusters or associations. So these are the fishermen we're working with in Croatia, and I think in the whole Adriatic Sea there are only 12 pole line small-scale fishermen with ICAT number who catch bluefin tuna. They have really low quotas, only around 8,000 kilograms. They basically have no discards, no bycatch. They are really sustainable. And what's really important that they are all diversified through pesca tourism, offering big game fishing, but some of them are also diversified through catering facilities, offering their bluefin tuna to tourists. Diversification, of course, is a huge step forward towards sustainable fishing, as the fishermen can catch even less but earn more. So I want just to show you a couple of photos of their vessels and tools. Those are vessels that are smaller than 12 meters. You can see their pole and lines here, and basically some species of caught tuna, bluefin tuna. When we analyze them, we saw that they didn't have any possibility for processing the tuna. They didn't have any capacity for storing the tuna. They were selling tuna as a whole, with the lowest price. And for them as a small individual business, it's impossible to obtain loans and to develop their business. And of course, their market reach, because of all this, was really small. So we started to work with them. We started to convince them to join cooperative. And we had a really tough job convincing them, educating them about the importance of joining cooperatives and what are the benefits of the cooperatives. Like co-management, branding, exclusive markets, sustainability, and this whole process went for 1 year. So over the 1 year, we had numerous of animations, workshops, team buildings, meetings. We were constantly analyzing data. The data in the EMOFA, on the EMOFA tool really was a helpful thing for us. We developed business plans with them, and we constantly mediated between the fishermen and the managing authorities. So basically our job was to cooperate these fishermen that you see on the left into a new cooperative. These are only some of them. 10 of them joined cooperative, and we had a success because the fishing cooperative Tuna Adria was established in 2020. So what is the outcome? So they developed and applied project to European Maritime Fisheries Fund. It's a small tuna processing facility. This is, of course, allow them to store, save quality, process, add quality to their catch, and of course, with the same amount of catch, have a bigger revenues. They started activities to be recognized as a producers organization. This will allow them to have access to a special measure from the EMFF for producers organization. They can use those funds to develop business and to be more competitive on the market. They started activities to obtain sustainability certificates because it was really funny to see that they don't have it. And in Croatia, no one has the sustainability certificate, and they are the first one who really have all the conditions. They meet all the conditions to get one because, as I told you, they don't have any discards, they don't have any bycatch, and they really have quotas only 8,000 kilograms per fisherman. Now they have much bigger influence on the market because if you consolidate supply, of course, your influence on the market is much bigger. And one also important thing is to say is that they now have an easier access to national and European policymakers, because this goes without saying. If you're recognized fishery cooperative, if you're recognized producers organization, you have you're much more significant. And we go to the third and the last story. It's quality labor fishermen recommend. I will first start with a question for you all. So who knows best where to eat local wild and fresh fish? I will just leave you for a couple of seconds if you can type in chat. What do you think? Who knows best where to eat local wild and fresh fish? Who would you go first to ask for? Okay, I will continue then. Of course, fishermen do. Fishermen do. Why do fishermen know this? Because they can give you the best recommendation because they know who buys their fish. These are just some of the photos of our fishermen who are included in this program. So why fishermen recommend label? We wanted to help our local fishermen to improve their market positions. And how? Well, through restaurants. Restaurants are the most important distribution channel for fish in our flag area. Only last year during COVID, we had more than 850,000 tourist arrivals and more than 5.9 million nights. That's only in our region, in our flag area, not the whole Croatia. We wanted to distinguish those restaurants, who sell local wild and fresh fish from the ones who are selling imported fish, mostly from outside of the European Union, with suspicious origin and quality, and it's always being passed or mislabeled as a local fish. This is something that goes on throughout the world, and a lot of time consumers are being deceived this way. In Croatia, if you are a restaurant and you want to buy directly from a fisherman, you have to be registered, as it's called, a first buyer, based on the Croatian fisheries law. So this is the label that we created and assigned them to those restaurants. So if you see a restaurant with this label, you know that you can eat local, fresh, wild-caught fish. And also, we believe that promoting or branding fishery products or gastronomy can't be done without the fishermen. This is a mistake a lot of them are making. They are skipping the fishermen, but they are the most important chain, as they're the ones who are bringing the fish from the sea to the plate, and they are the ones who make the difference between the fish, whether it's caught sustainable or not, and whether it has a good quality or not. So we started with the campaign on social networks. We started to tell the story behind the fish by telling the story behind the fishermen. We started to show the people the faces of those fishermen, their tools, boats, crew, and ultimately bring people closer to their work, because they deserve to get the most important place in this whole fishing story. We somehow wanted to make the celebrities out of them, and I think we really had a great success. You can see here we used Instagram, we used YouTube, we used Facebook, and we created a website, Fishermen Recommend, where among other things you can see fisherman's profile and you can find out everything about them and why are they being a fisherman. So results, yes, so far 20 fishermen included and 12 restaurants, and that number is growing. We educated locals where to eat local wild fish so that they could pass this information to tourists also, because even the locals didn't know where they can eat local fish. Media started to cover our programs and are doing interviews and articles about our fishermen, and basically they are being recognized in their communities. Interesting stories that one fisherman told me, I had one friend who met me a couple of days ago and said, I didn't thought no, I didn't know that you're a professional fisherman. I only thought that you were doing it for fun. So we had also another problems. I think it goes out. It's the same in the European Union. It's problem with the working force, and we made this job more desirable because it was wrongly perceived as something that is really difficult and needs special skills. We demystified the fisherman's jobs and promoted advantages and benefits of being a fisherman. And the important thing is that we are minimizing carbon footprint because we are shortening the chains of supply. And if it's caught locally, if it's eaten locally, then it doesn't have to go to other countries, and the carbon footprint is really, really low. So this is just one quote from a fisherman who's included in the program. He says that he's pleasantly surprised. He believes that it will help fishermen a lot, not only materially, but also emotionally. That's what we achieved with this social campaign, and that's what we achieved by promoting our fishermen, and we wanted to put them on the spot to make the celebrities of the that's it. So thank you. If you want to find out more, come to our beautiful coast. It's summertime. You can find out more about these success stories.
Thank you very much, Ante. That was indeed several positive stories that you have told us. Not only have you brought fishers together into a cooperative, you have upgraded the safety and comfort in the vessels, added value to the product, created a label, educated consumers, and promoted the local fish species, and of course the local area to tourists. I was wondering whether there are any questions to Ante's presentations. If there are, please put them into the chat. Thank you.
Yes, I left you my contacts. You're more than welcome to write me or to ask me more questions after this presentation. Whatever you need, any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
I can see that somebody is asking where we get more information about Tonnarella.
Where can we? Well, you can contact me. I will join you with them together. They are stationed in our flag area. So they applied a request to our flagpole, and now it's in the process of approving it. And they already bought the land where they will build this processing facility. So yes, you can contact me, and I will put you together.
And then there's another comment on how you managed to get an allocation of quota.
Well, it's basically, the ICAT is controlling the quotas, and he's giving the quotas per countries. Croatia has its own quotas, and then they are giving them to fishermen and to tuna harvesters and to purse seiners. So our managing authority, our ministry, is giving quotas in Croatia, the quotas that our country has. And they are fighting, because they're really sustainable. They don't have any discards, any bycatch, and they should be awarded with bigger quota. And they're always fighting for bigger quotas. They're always talking to our managing authority about it, because we believe that they should be granted more quotas, as they are really, really sustainable, not like other, let's say, other fishermen who catch them, because they can only catch bluefin tuna. They don't catch any other fish in order to get one bluefin tuna. So they're really sustainable, and we believe that they should be granted with more quotas.
Thank you. There's another question here about the products. Are the products going to local market or international?
Okay, so at the moment they still don't have the processing facility. Basically now they are selling tuna as a whole. Some of it goes to restaurants here. Some of it goes to Italy, I think also Spain. They are negotiating now with Japan. But when the processing starts, when they're able to process the tuna to make all kinds of products, and when they obtain a sustainability certificate, I think the market will be much more brighter, much more bigger, they can enter the exclusive markets, but at now they're selling tuna as a whole, achieving the smallest prices. Now during the season, of course, mostly goes locally because we have a lot of demand for tourists here. But during the winter time, yes, it goes outside of the Croatia.
Okay, I think that that covers the questions as far as I can see. Oh, there's just another one that come in. Let me just see here.
Yeah, I can see this question. Yeah. Yes, of course, we have started to do this because, as I mentioned, all these tuna fishermen are offering pesca tourism, big game fishing. But I didn't have any time to show you other projects because we are also using the European Maritime Fisheries Fund for fishermen to diversify, not only to pesca tourism, but also to diversify through catering facilities. So yes, we are using that fund, and the fishermen see from other fishermen that it's really lucrative. And we have a lot of examples from fishermen who went into pesca tourism are now catching less, but earning more because the incomings from the tourists are much bigger than from the fish. So that's really, really important thing to say. And of course, when one fisherman sees another fisherman that's doing that has more incomings, that's spending less time on the sea, more time with his family, and earning more, of course, they will join. So yes, we have more and more fishermen coming to us and saying, okay, we would like to go to pesca tourism. So we are not only helping them with the administration, telling them how, but we are also helping them to apply to obtain funds through EMFF requests. So we had, I can talk you all day about those projects and the requests, perhaps some other time, but yes, we are doing that on a daily basis, helping our fishermen to diversify.
Thank you, Ante. That was very interesting indeed. We have a slight change in the program. The next presentation will be from David Lange, who is from Denmark. David is responsible for the, well, maybe not responsible, but he is involved in the what is called Naturskaansom, which is the it's a low impact coastal fishers here in Denmark, where he's a member of the board, and he is also co-founder of FSK-PO, which is a small fisherman-owned and operated fish processing facility. David, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity. If I can get my presentation up here. Yes. Can you see it, everybody? It's good. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, my name is David Lange, and as you mentioned, I'm a co-founder of FSK-PO, which is a small-scale buying and processing facility we started 6 years ago with focus on low-impact caught fish. We had a lot of the was that getting the fish from small-scale fishermen more directly to consumers and skipping some of the value chain was difficult. So we started our own small-scale facility that has been growing in numbers, and we're an alternative to the fish auctions here in Denmark, so to speak. And we've had pretty good success in raising the value of the fish because we work more targeted with customers than the auctions here can do. So I'm part of that. I'm also board member of FSK-PO, which is the small Kystfiskeri, the Association of Small Scale Low Impact Fishermen, an association we started back in 2014 to ensure we had representation that could talk to the political needs we had in the small scale sector here in Denmark more directly. I'll come back to more of that. And one of the biggest success we've had here, which I will come back to also, is the forming of the state-controlled label Naturskaansom, which is a label state-controlled for small-scale, low-impact caught fish. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't formed this association and had gotten the experience with working with political processes and so on here in Denmark. And for that label, I'm also a type of project manager. We're working. The label was introduced about 2 years ago officially, and we're still in the very nascent stage of this, which means that we still have different issues to work out. Fishermen need to take the fishermen needs to take a course and so on. So we're kind of building capacity, and at the same time trying to get the label out to the market in close collaboration with the Danish government. So that was briefly about me. Just quickly, I'll run over what we mean when one of the big things we've done here in Denmark, we've worked with a lot, was to try, since we formed the association, was to try to counter this story that we often hear, that the small scale fishing operations, it's a museum type fishing, it's obsolete, it's not economically viable, and so on. That was a story that we would often run into here. So a lot of the stuff we've been trying to focus on here is try to change that story. So briefly, when we talk about sustainability, what are we talking about? We're talking in the small scale sector, we're talking about environmental sustainability, so that what we saw in the beginning was that a lot of these positives that are in the small scale sector, the low impact on the seabed floor, less bycatch, unwanted species, less fuel consumption, and so on. These weren't really issues that these weren't working for the fishermen. So what you had a situation with small-scale fishermen here having to compete directly with someone on the markets that were more effective and so on. So it was very important for us to get these stories, these positive aspects of the small-scale fishing and especially low-impact fishing forward. That's one aspect of sustainability. The social, of course, also, which is very relevant to what we're talking about or here also, is that the support for small scale communities. We've seen a decrease here in the past 10, 12 years. So a lot of the smaller landing sites and smaller fishing harbors have disappeared, a lot of them actually, and quotas and fishing intensity have been concentrated at a few places in Denmark. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And what we're saying is, of course, also that we need some more diversification here, and there's the economic aspect of sustainability. Sorry, Ante mentioned it also in his. A key thing that we're always working towards is saying, so how do we get the maximum value out of fish? So changing the whole idea that sometimes that has been in fisheries traditionally, that when the prices go down, we fish more, to get away from that mindset and say, okay, so with smaller quotas, all these things, how do we constantly work to get a higher value, get a better quality, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of key points for how we work with it. Just very briefly, I'll run over. We have 3 associations in Denmark: the pelagic organization, which are the bigger pelagic vessels, of course, that are they're in fleet size, and then we have the DFBO, the Danish Fishermen's Association, that represents both fisheries for consummate and industry fishing, and have from small scale to a bigger scale. And then we have us at the FSK. We were recognized as a producers organization in 2019 and formed in 2014. And we represent the small scale communities from pound net fishes, small creel fishes, and so on, to to fishermen with vessels up until 17 meters in length and who fish with low impact fishing gear. And what do I mean when I say low impact fishing gear? I can see I've forgotten to translate one thing here, but we're talking about nets, hooks, traps, line, reel, and then Danish seine fishing. When we formed the association, it was important for us, as I mentioned, to get these stories of the positive aspects of this told. So you can say these fisheries, as you know, they're less effective often, not always, but less effective measured on kind of pure effectivity, but they also have less impact on bycatch, fuel consumption, and seafloor, especially. So what we're trying to do in forming this image of fishing, of changing this image of fishing here in Denmark, is saying we're using these traditional techniques, but with modern tactics. So we're always, again, trying to see looking for new markets, developing the fisheries, new products within the fishery types. How can we develop gear? How can we address some of the problems that we do have in the more low-pack fisheries? So some of the consequences, mammals and bird bycatches, for instance, we're focused very much upon how do we minimize that to as much as possible. Because of course, all fishing does have consequences, but what we're also trying to promote is this idea that we've talked to a lot of scientists about, is that this type of fishing doesn't impact the entire marine system as such. Of course, you have the consequences, but it's not the ecosystem bottom down and up. So I talked earlier about the decrease in small harbors, and basically the big orange dot here is Copenhagen market, which is the biggest national market here. The white dots are the auctions, and some of the blue dots here are where we had fishermen. So basically they were caught in what we kind of call the downward spiral, which meant that you could catch really nice fish. We have fishermen all over Denmark. This is just an example to show that one of the issues we had was that that this fish would go to auction. Of course, it could take some time before the fish were very beautifully caught, cooled, but then for the logistics to pick them up, it could take a bit of time. And with the falling number of harbors, the routes became less and less, and so the fishermen would suddenly have 3 or 4 days with their fish before it came to the auction. And of course, they were the ones paying the price for that. So we changed that with building this new system. What did it take? Well, it took courage, because first of all, it took the will, of course, to change and try and see, can we break out of these systems? Are we willing to run the risk it takes? So it's taken a lot of courage and will to change. But we've been increasing in numbers, and I would say we've been pretty successful in also trying to get a new image to the more low scale sector. Some of the challenges I've mentioned already that we all are facing: the infrastructure disappearing, the state of the sea in general, pollution here, increase in regulations and quotas. Not that we're completely, of course, pro fisheries control and so on, but the burden of everything is just increasing for fishermen. And it's, if you're a one-man operation, two-man operation, it feels like, the pressure of that, as you all know, is bigger. That feels bigger than it does in a larger cooperation. We're facing here issues with seal and cormorants all over Denmark, and from the North Sea and to the Baltic. Political prioritization, as I think is one of the centers of this whole debate today, is of course something that we've worked hard to try to really have, keep the the low impact small scale fishing on the political agenda, and then finding the next generation. So we're working very much towards doing that. And of course, that's also kind of connected into this whole idea of changing the story about the small scale fishing, because if you're a young person, you don't want to go in, you want to go into something where you can see a future. So it's very important for us to paint a picture of, or not paint a picture, but show that actually low impact small scale fishing is the future, is a big part of the future. So what do we have of possibilities? We have public support, a strong public support. We have technology on many aspects working towards getting the logistics part to run better and so on, and lessening the administration. Then we have the label Naturskaansom, which I will get more into in a second. We have a louder voice now because we're unified, and I think that doesn't only account for Denmark. That's in general in Europe. We're a part of the low impact fishes of Europe, which have been a great support for us, and we've learned a lot in this process of changing experiences back and forth with life. So and form this new political voice and agenda. So future possibilities. We have all these problems. I mentioned pollution and so on. We all share that, but as I said, we also see the small scale, low impact sector as a part of really driving the development and the modernization of the fishing. Let me see. There's a small catches. So we do that. How do we think and how do we work? As I mentioned, yeah, we constantly work with how we increase the value of the limited quota. So how do we get the most out of the fisheries? How do we differentiate it for season? That's one of the strengths that we have in the small scale boat, is that we can change this. We had the cod situation in the Baltic Sea, for instance, is a good example. That has been a keystone in Danish fisheries in the Baltic, but because of the quotas of the last couple of years, we've had to look elsewhere and change and find fisheries and so on. We've been pretty successful, I would say, with that, changing also to building fishing shore crabs, getting that bycatch in and so on, completely new fisheries, but also changing the setup to a more diversified type fishery. And then, of course, we always, it's very important for us to say that we're, as wild fishermen, we're fishing on the last wild resource we have, and it's, of course, essential to everything we do that this is protected by all means. The FSK-PO has helped us get a unified voice, which has, and the recognition as a PO has helped us with all the political work we do, and in general with better market access and so on. So I only have positive things to say that all this has grown out of simply being unifying, finding a common ground to stand on and a common thing to work towards. And the result, one of the big results of this has been this label Naturskaansom, which is a state-controlled label. Ground, see the label up there, is signaling that this is controlled by the Danish government. It's free for all to use, from fishermen to what it requires is you take a 2-day course where you get some where you learn more about quality and how do we increase that, how do we get the most out of the different type of fish, a little bit about animal welfare and so on, and that's a work in progress. That course, you take the 2-day course, then you can apply for the certification, and then you can label your fish if they are within the types of fish that can be labeled from healthy stocks, which are defined every year in collaboration with the on the background, of course, of the ICES advice, and in collaboration with the Danish Technical University in an open process. But this has allowed us to get this story broader out. We're still very early stages, so of course it's getting the consumers to recognize this will be a long process, building the capacity to ensure that we have enough fish for these processes also to work. We get support from the fishermen and so on. There's been obstacles and we're working with them, but we're getting a lot of experience from how this whole process of having a label, starting with the idea of a label and then taking it all the way to becoming state controlled with all that entails. That has been, I would say, one of the biggest successes of the Danish small scale sector, so to speak. We're not finished, but we're definitely working in the right direction and seeing a future that is bright, not without problems. There are plenty of problems, but we definitely, I think, also have a clear picture of where we can be part of taking fisheries into the future. That was it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. That was an exciting presentation. Thank you for that. Again, I would like to ask if there are any questions. We have time actually only for a couple, but if there are more than that, then they can be addressed directly to David in the chat.
I can see we already have one. It says, David, you mentioned seals and cormorants as your challenge. How do you solve this issue?
I don't know. It's I don't have a completely clear answer for that, except saying that it's a process. Of course, we're working with. We recognize that, of course, that we have a huge problem with especially cormorants, and these processes are difficult and difficult political decision or discussion to have, of course, because it's not something that politicians are jumping on, having to have this maybe debate about saying that the seals have been that we need to at some point look into seal regulation and how we do that. So I don't have a clear-cut answer for that, except saying that we're trying to involve all interest groups in it and trying to get a broader idea of what are the issues, what can we do, trying to be patient and so on. But just to say that of course I think we have to recognize it's not a problem only in Denmark, it's a problem in many places. That of course we have to somehow recognize this and find some balance in it. But we keep it on the political agenda. We're in a lot of different working groups and so on. We try to have everybody involved, critics and so on, and try to see if some solution can be found. But I would love to hear from other people too who have experiences with this and how we can work with it.
Thank you, David. I think we'll proceed now to the next speaker. This is Erko Veltson from the Estonian Fisheries Information Center, which organizes training, seminars, and events to promote the fisheries sector. And his talk will cover the Baltic Sea. Erko, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have heard now 2 presentations, and I have to say that we have a lot of common things and ideas and problems with David and with Ante. David, seals and cormorants are a problem for Estonian fisheries also. Ante, the fishermen don't want to work together. They are not willing to be cooperative and so on. And that's my comment. Even we are not neighbor countries, but we have similar problems. Okay, I will show you a short video about Estonian fishing sector. It's 3 minutes, and I think I will able to give my presentation about 10 minutes. So we are on time. Is it okay?
Yes, that's fine. Go ahead.
I will just wait a little bit. I can see the screen again. Do you see the video? Yes.
Yes, we see it, but I can't hear anything.
So that was a short version of the video about the Estonian fishing sector. I will stop sharing for a moment and then I will do my presentation. Okay. Share the screen again. And now my presentation. I will talk about Estonian, a little bit Estonian funding and what are the main goals in small scale fisheries areas, and what we will see in the future. And one short success story of Estonian. So here are my colleagues and younger version of me and our office, our building. In Estonia, we have 8 flags. Flags are fishing areas. 2 are inland, small lake here, and bigger lake Peipsi here, and 2 islands, bigger islands. I think the most catched fish are in Pärnu area, coastal area, and the other big catches are in Lake Peipsi. Yeah, and as 8 flags will continue in next funding period also. About the funding, EU funding, we started with the European Maritime Fisheries Fund in 2007. I think I know that our flags were placed and selected in 2009, and then they started their work. The first period, the budget was 32 million. It includes project money and running costs for the flags. In the first period, our main goal was to invest to the fishing harbors. Mainly the fishing harbors in Estonia are privately owned, and fishermen don't have usually the money to invest to the harbors. So the first period we invested mainly to the harbors. Now they are in good condition, and now this period the budget was 25 million, and the main goals were processing, adding value, diversification, because the fishing is seasonal, and if we can't fish, we have to earn money and do something else. This is about EU funding, and about the future, the next period. They are talking, the fishermen talking that maybe we should make the harbors multifunctional, that they can provide other services and products also during the not to the if there is no not fishing season. Now I will talk about success story. It's one man who started on his own, and now he has, I think, 7 workers all year around. The company is called Stonefish, and it's located in smaller island in Estonia called Hiiumaa. The population is over 9,000. You have to go to the island with the ferry, and it took like 75 minutes or something, and it's from the capital 4 hours drive. Here you can see the shop and the processing building. They started to build it 2017. Here are the amounts what EMFF provide them. The first amount you see is to the diversification. The second project was equipment for processing, and the third project was product development. Also, as you see, they got the award for the building design. First, the fishermen started to produce gill nets and other fishing equipment. And before this this big building or the shop, he started to do it in his own house, own garage, and the interest was so high because the interest was high, and the need was high, and there was not enough room in his own house, and so he started to think bigger. There are not a lot of producers who is making gill nets and fishing equipment in Estonia, so the success was very good. After that, he think that we should add value to the fish to get more money, and I think we all know that in that direction we should move, adding value for the fish and getting more money. After that, he started to processing his own catch and selling it. Even he's buying the fish for other fishermen also, and not to the bigger companies who are not paying enough money or not a good price for the fish. So it's like local community project also, and he's a good man and popular man in island Hiiumaa. This is my favorite picture about the product development. They produced fish chocolate. It has been very popular in many events, farnet events and fairs. You see the face here. One of the TV shows, national TV shows, then tried fish chocolate. In my opinion, it's not so bad. But if you look at the face, he's not liking it. But I must say that this is a popular chocolate for the gift, or you don't want to eat it daily basis, but it's something different. More about product development. There are some species of fish which are less popular in Estonia. Example, pike, flounder, maybe golden orf, and now they are drying it and making a fillet and drying it. So it's quite popular also. Because Estonian people like to eat dried fish. Yeah. About the branding and marketing, in the label you see one of the labels here. There is a personal brand selling story about the fisherman, and I think it's good. Mainly. His products go to the local market, and maybe in summertime some tourists will buy also. But in my opinion, his products are now in our airport also in Tallinn. So if tourists or whoever flies from Tallinn to another place, they can buy his products on the airport also. So the branding and marketing is and labeling, it's important thing for the product. As I said, his activities are very important in the local community, and 2018 they gave him award, Act of the Year. You see our president, he's not now working anymore, but former president is tasting the local catches and local products here. And about the jobs, as I tell you that there is 7 jobs all year round, even in summertime where there are more tourists, there are some, I think, few people more. So important entrepreneur or fisherman in the local community. And this is my final picture. This is the port, also renovated by EMF, and this is the port where he goes for fishing, and here is his children. So yeah, short success story about the Estonian guy who has been very active, asking money from EMFF and European fundings. Yeah. Thank you. It was quicker than I think, but I think you have the overview now.
Thank you, Erko. That was it was an interesting presentation, and I particularly like this idea of creating fish snacks out of species which are maybe they're not so popular, or they're not used or not so commonly available, because snacks are always something that people will eat with pleasure. But if there are any questions in the chat, maybe Thomas, are there any?
Yes, we have we have one. How are your fishers dealing with the processing challenges of these bony fish? Are these the fish you are drying? Is the question.
These are the fish we are drying, and also they are making with the bony fish. They are making fillets, and then the how to say it, fish meat or mash. You can. I don't know the English word now. You slice it like a very small species, and you cannot taste or feel the bones there.
Good. I think now if there are any further questions, please put them into the chat, and I would request the speakers also to, I think you've already been doing that, but just to keep an eye on the chat box and to see if there are any questions that are addressed to you, if you could please answer them. Thank you.
One question.
Yes, we have a question to you, Erko. Where can we find these snacks and products online?
I don't know if they are sending the snacks and products to other countries, but I can put their homepage here in the chat.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Otherwise, maybe we'll ask you to parallel import them.
Yes.
Thank you, Erko. We now move on to our next speaker, Nuri Basusta. Nuri is from the Faculty of Fisheries at Firat University in Turkey, and his presentation focuses on the Black Sea and specifically on Rapana Whelk. Nuri, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Behnan. I am pleased to be here with you. I present different thing in the Black Sea, because Black Sea means is anchovy. Anchovy is Black Sea. So in this presentation, sustainable development of Rapa Whelk fisheries in the Black Sea area. Rapa Whelk or sea snail Rapana venosa is very important in the Black Sea for small-scale fisheries, because in this industry working more than 8,000 people. Okay. Rapa Whelk, Rapana venosa, as you know, is an invasive alien species in the Black Sea and Sea of Marmara, which has introduced in 1940s from the Sea of Japan. Its native distribution area is the Asian Pacific waters from Japan to Korea and Taiwan. The Rapa Whelk is fished for human consumption in some countries such as Japan, South Korea, and China. According to in Turkey, according to TÜİK data, the amount of Rapa Whelk obtained from fishing, which was approximately 12,000 tons in 2019, decreased to approximately 80,000 tons in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. This species is a very important commercial species, like the other marine gastropods, such as Buttini mundatum and Neptunia antiqua. A large proportion of these gastropod landings are exported to the Eastern Asia. According to FAO Global Fisheries catch statistic, Rapana fisheries were negligible before the Black Sea fishery commerce until the 1980s. Total catches were less than 200 tons annually, mostly from Korea, where the species was of little importance in its native range. And also stock assessment and age determination of demersal fauna are very important issue for the fisheries research. Rapa Whelk presents a challenging management problem for the Black Sea riparian countries. Some scientists think the species as a marine resource to be sustainably managed and are worried about overfishing, while others are more concerned about the biodiversity threats this invasive alien species is currently creating. Because the Rapa Whelk was depleted large stocks of commercial bivalves, especially the Mediterranean mussels, Mytilus galloprovincialis, and local Ostreaedulus population in the Black Sea since its expansion in the 1950s. Its predation on the native mollusks negatively affects Black Sea biodiversity and reduced the associated ecosystem services provided by bivalves, such as water filtration and purification, etc. As you see in this slide, the empty bivalves. Interestingly, Rapa whelk is not consumed domestically in Turkey. However, the species is an important export commodity. In 2017, total Black Sea exports of Rapa venosa, mainly from Turkey and Bulgaria, reached $12.5 million. This species has been commercially caught and exported since 1986 and is a source of income for the fishermen of the region. Although some biological studies such as species distribution, reproduction, feeding, and larval development of Rapa venosa have been carried out, age and growth studies have been incomplete and cannot be solved for the last 30 years due to lack of appropriate method or methods. This has led to the lack of management models and strategies of this species. Age information is an important tool and contributes to the monitoring and management of populations of gastropods. New studies on the aging of Rapa whelk were done along the Turkish Black Sea coast lately. These methods, some of them stipulate it is the sensory gravity receptors which are balancing and orientation are used for the accurate age determination, and opercula, as you see, and vertical cutting method and spanning marks on the surface of Rapana. In this pictures, and also length frequency analysis and stable oxygen isotope methods also. And spanning marks very easy method for the other methods, according to other methods, and the species begins to spawn in the third year of life. Accordingly, it is possible to estimate the age of the Rapa whelk by adding to the total number of thinking on the water surface of the shell. The general management of whelk populations is difficult due to lack of their life history. The most realistic method is collecting age-related information from the statistics for this species, because these structures are internal structures. For this reason, they don't affect it by the environmental conditions, such as opercula. In here, in this picture, as you see, this here is the settlement ring, and the other ring 1 to the 11. The General Fisheries Commission of the Mediterranean declared in 2018, I think in Batumi, that the Rapa whelk became one of the 8 priority species in the Black Sea, for which species fisheries advice was to be produced Following this decision in 2020, Rapa stock assessment surveys by the Black Sea countries were initiated to provide management recommendations regarding its sustainable exploitation. Rapa is called generally beam trawls by Turkey. Other fishing methods include dredge, spots, and diving also. In 2018, 725 fishing vessels were registered with daily operation of 9 hours during daylight, and approximately 125 active days in one fishing season. And as you see in this beam trawl, these are thicker chains. And also the with this beam trawls and dredges, on the other hand, are used to target species that stay on the bottom or that are partly buried in the sediment. The most noticeable physical effect of beam trawling and dredging is flattening of irregular bottom topography by eliminating natural features. In addition, the commercial fishers, the Rapa fishery provided substantial opportunity to marginalized communities in the Black Sea coasts to escape poverty by new income provision. Additionally, poor rural women from this region deprived of their agricultural production opportunities while new agricultural policies began to work on as unskilled seasonal part-time labor in Rapa processing facilities. Besides creating new employment opportunities in newly established processing plants, Rapa Fisheries supported some artisanal workers in ornamental work with the shells of these animals. Additional use of shells included being a new calcium source for poultry fats after grinding and filling material in construction industry because totally produced 35,000 ton Rapa Whelk and need to be processed these shells. Seasonal shell mix can be used as a partial replacement of cement in construction and manufacturing because of their pozzolan nature and shell ash content mixed with cement. For point of result. For a sustainable Rapa Whelk fishery, good management advice must be provided to decision makers. Any good advice will depend on precise aging information. In addition, fishing these species with the beam trawls should be limited or totally abandoned. Dredging harms the benthic habitat and untargeted other marine life. The principal fishing practice should be diving. Approximately 75% of Rapa were captured under 10 meters in depth. These studies on fishing methods which are not harmful to the ecosystem, such as the pot fishery, should be encouraged to secure sustainability in Rapa Whelk fishery. A fisheries management plan based on the ecosystem approach should be prepared through consultation with the relevant stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you, Nuri. That was an interesting presentation on the Rapa Whelk. It seems as if it is both a predator but also a resource, and
yes,
also it has a role in providing jobs to women in processing factories. So it is of it is of some significance, certainly. Are there any questions to Nuri's intervention? So please put them into the chat.
We have a question. How do you monitor this fishery and control it?
what again, please?
How do you monitor this fishery and how do you control it?
In the Black Sea?
Yes.
This species is it doesn't control in the Black Sea because there are many fishing vessels fishing with beam trawls. It is difficult to control.
Okay. And then we have another question here. How optimally effective is the pot catching compared to dredge for the beneficial of local fishermen?
Indeed, pot fishery is very useful, but I didn't see in the Black Sea because it is not effective fishing tools. It is not effective. Should be supported by new projects, the pot fishery. But I didn't see in the in my area.
Thank you, Nuri.
You're right.
We will now move on to the final presentation for today. This is from Valentina Cappanera, who is an environmental marine scientist who works for the Portofino Marine Protected Area off the coast of Italy in the Ligurian Sea. Valentina, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your invitation. I try to share my screen now. Okay. Can you see it? Okay.
Yes, we see it.
Okay. Okay. Good morning to everybody. I'm Valentina Cappanera. I am an environmental scientist working in Portofino MPA since 2006. I'm really happy to be here and to tell you something regarding this particular way of fishing that is date back to 17th century, the Tonnarella of Camogli. Before I have to say something regarding Portofino MPA in order to have the contest. Portofino MPA is placed in the northwestern side of Mediterranean Sea. Is the third smallest MPA in Italy. It is only 336 hectares. But I can say that it's really full of human activities. We have not only professional, we have not only small-scale fishery, but also recreational fishery, boating, and scuba diving activity. So we have a really small MPA, but really active territory. Portofino MPA is also a SPAMI site, a protected areas of special importance at Mediterranean level since 2005. So in order to maintain this sort of certification, as MPA staff, we have to carry on a strong monitoring activity regarding all the human activities that are inside the MPA. I can say that fishery is a really old activity in Portofino MPA. In these slides, you can see some of the pictures regarding the fishing activity in Camogli village. That is one of the villages of the MPA. We have three villages that are Santa Margherita Ligure, Portofino, and Camogli, that are based, especially Portofino and Camogli, on fishery and also on tourism. And you can see some people bringing a net, a long net that is the net of the Tonnarella of Camogli. Which are the gears they used in the MPA. We don't have industrial fishing, we don't have troll and net, but we have only small-scale fishery gear, such as fixed net, surrounding net, and long line. Then we have also two old way of fishing. One is the Tonnarella of Camogli, and another one is Muginara, that is another traditional way of fishing used to catch pelagic fish, but is a little bit different from the Tonnarella. Regarding the Tonnarella of Camogli, in the slides on the right side, you can see the promontory of Portofino in the east side of Ligurian coast. We have the south of Portofino promontory, that is the B zone, the general reserve of the MPA, while the east side and the west side of Portofino promontory are the C zone, the parcel reserve of the MPA. In the parcel reserve, activities as small-scale fishery are allowed, and only fishermen that live in the villages of the MPA, or only the cooperative that work the territory of the MPA can operate. In the picture on the left, you can see a model of the Tonnarella that is like a real Tonnara, a static trap device typical of the south of Italy, especially Sicily or Sardinia. But a characteristic of the Tonnarella is that usually this type of device doesn't catch bluefin tuna, but other fishes, other migrant fish that are pelagic fish and that live, that swim usually in offshore water, but during the spring period swim close to the coast in order to look for a warmer water. In the slides, you can see a particular situation regarding the currents that are in the that are established in the east and the west side of Portofino promontory during the spring period, because there is a current that comes from the east of Ligurian Sea, follow the Portofino promontory, and when pass the point on the left side of Portofino promontory that is called Punta Chiappa forms a particular gyre in the Gulf on the west side of Portofino promontory. That gyre, that current, has a clockwise direction, and the migrant fish that are the fish usually caught in the Tonnarella follow this gyre. So follow this clockwise direction, goes in close to Camogli, close to the coast, and then swim following the coast, I can say, with the coast on the left side. So this is a particular of the tuna trap. There is a barrage that is called pedale, that swim that stop the swim of fish. And there are two chambers, the chamber of collection and the chamber of death, that is called Lea. A migrant fish a migrant fish swims with the coast on his left side, follow the current when meet the barrage, follows the barrage, the pedale, and enter in the first chamber, the chamber of collection. When he is inside the chamber, the fish is disoriented by the current forces it to move in the chamber of death, that usually fishermen call the Lea, because it is the side of the net that is raised. Lea is the local language used to call the chamber of death. The MPA usually promote this type of fishing and also protect, I can say, this type of fishing, because I can say that the Tonnarella is an old way of fishing, traditional but also sustainable. In this picture, you can see some steps of the manufacturing of the net. The net used to work is really particular, is in coconut fiber, is totally vegetable and biodegradable. So Camogli fishermen usually every year in the winter work on the production of this net in some warehouse in Camogli, and also in the small village of San Fruttuoso, where there is a particular zone that you can see in the picture on the right side. And where the fishermen used to prepare the net with the support of an old system used since 17th century. The Tonnarella is placed into the sea in spring from April to the end of August, September. The Camogli fishermen usually work every day. Specifically, they work 3 times a day, on the sunset and in the morning and in the afternoon. So it's a really hard work. Actually, today, a great part of, I can say that in the past, all the fishermen of Camogli and other villages that are close to the MPA worked in the Tonnarella, while at the moment, today, a great part of the crew is made up of foreign guys, because it's really hard work, and it's difficult to find people, young people that want to do this work. It is important to say, it's important for the MPA to say that the Tonnarella of Camogli is managed by the Cooperativa Pescatori Camogli. The fishermen of the Cooperativa every day fill in a logbook with the catches that they usually do every day. And at the end of the season, the Camogli fishermen give some data, this data to the staff of the MPA. So in the slides you can see images regarding the catches, the total catches of the Tonnarella of Camogli from the 17 from 1917 to 2020. I can say that we have different period with different data. What we have observed during the years is that the quantity of catches are more or less the same in the different period. There are strange years in which fishermen usually catch only 15 tons of fish, but usually 50 tons is a good quantity for them. But what has changed during the years is the quality of fish. Are the species. The species have been changed. In this context, the MPA staff, in collaboration also with the University of Genoa, since the beginning of I can say the beginning of the MPA, but surely from 2005, tried to evaluate if there is a relationship between the quantity, not the quantity, but the quality of catches and the meteomarine condition. Especially since 2017, we installed a specific data logger for the monitoring of temperature close to the Tonnarella, in order to monitor in continuous the temperature, the water temperature. In these slides, I reported something regarding which are the catches, the different catches in species of the Tonnarella. I can say that white tunas and sarda sarda and Seriola dumerili, the great amberjack, are the most important catches in the last years. From our observation, emerged a lot of information. There is a strong, I can say that there is a strong correlation between the increasing of water temperature and the different catches of the last years in the Tonnarella of Camogli. Especially, we observed a decreasing of species with a cold water affinity and an increasing of species of warm water affinity. For example, there are species like great amberjack or also barracuda that appeared in the last 20 years. Appeared relatively recently, while other species, such as, for example, Atlantic soup mackerels, Scomber japonicus, that have replaced other species like mackerel, Scomber scombrus. So some species that have a warmer water affinity have replaced other species with a cold water affinity. And this is also demonstrated from a comparison with some information collected by interview to the fishermen by a particular protocol that is called the local ecological knowledge in a specific project on climate change. So I can say that the Tonnarella of Camogli permits to collect information regarding changes in species composition inside the Portofino MPA, but not only inside the Portofino MPA, in general in the Ligurian Sea. So we have defined the Tonnarella as a real laboratory of biodiversity, quite important for the MPA. It is also a sustainable way of fishing, not only for the coconut fiber that at the end of the season is left into the sea because it's totally biodegradable, but also the mesh sides of the net are really big, so the small fish can be free to move into the water. And I can also add that the long-term collaboration between the MPA and the fishermen is totally important for the data collection, the data collection of really key information useful for the MPA, because fishermen represent a real historical memory, unique in the territory. And so can surely say that the contribution of fishermen is key in the management of the marine protected area. So thank you very much. If you have one more one more minute, I can share with you a small video, really short, short video of 1 minute regarding the Tonnarella, so you can see some images.
Yeah, Valentina, please go ahead.
Okay. I have to share again the screen, or you see? Okay, no. Okay.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Valentina. That was a pretty film. And it was also very apparent from your presentation about some of the clear and present impacts of climate change on species distribution. But I will go on to ask if there are any questions to Valentina's intervention. Please put them into the chat.
Well, we received one question that was actually directed to all the speakers, but we can probably raise it here. Cornelie wrote that women and youth play an important but generally invisible role in small-scale fisheries. In this success stories, what is done to achieve more recognition of their role and their future prospects in fisheries?
I can answer. I can say what I think. I think that it is difficult to answer. In our situation, I don't know the situation in the other zone of the Mediterranean Sea, but in the Ligurian Sea, specifically in the north of Mediterranean Sea, we have problems with the fact that, as I said in the presentation, young people usually doesn't want to do this hard job because the income, so usually the income is not good income, and the job is really hard. So I can say that as MPA, during the years, we have also tried to promote the Tonnarella activity, also in collaboration with a small association called Ziguele, that was made up of young biologists that used to bring tourists to see the Tonnarella of Camogli in order to see which is the work of the fishermen, and in order also to spread the information regarding this fishing activity that is a sustainable fishing activity, and in order also to engage young people, also students of the University of Genoa, for example, that is close to the MPA, in the activity of the Tonnarella. I think that in the case of MPA, we always talk regarding the problem of small scale, of the impact of the small scale fishery in the MPA. But every year we observe that the number of fishermen, of professional fishermen, is decreasing because the middle age is height. I think that we have to find the way to engage young people if we want to continue also to eat fish in a sustainable way. And maybe a possible solution could be carry on training activities addressed to young people to fish in a sustainable way. But is an option, an idea from my side.
Thank you, Valentina. If there are any more questions, perhaps you could have a look at the chat, Valentina, and maybe you could answer them directly.
Yes, I saw the question: do you practice pescaturismo to promote Tonnarella technique? I answered before talking about this association called Tonnarella that at the beginning was an association that now is a company made up of young biologists. They usually organize touristic activity in order to see the Tonnarella. The Tonnarella of Camogli. The problem is that fishermen are not really familiar with tourists, so sometimes they don't like to have tourists that watch their activity. But we have to manage during the years. We have improved this activity, and they have also accepted that they need tourists if they wanted to continue their activity. But it's a long work. Very nice presentation.
Thank you, Valentina. I think we've reached almost the end of our webinar now. It's a little after 12. I'll just briefly add a comment about maybe what at least my take homes are, and they are that there seem to be common problems irrespective of the sea basin, that small scale fishermen seem to face some common challenges. I think Erko mentioned it earlier that cooperation amongst fishermen is one, but there are also very practical problems like seals and cormorants. And I think another issue is also getting young people into these fisheries. But there are also, I mean, the presentations show that there are also common solutions, or solutions that have been arrived at from all the different fisheries areas. including the adding value, for example, to products, diversification, not only in terms of the species, but also in terms of the activities, like diversifying into pescatourism, for example, and also this issue of creating labels. But I guess underneath all of this is the support, which is very important, of the EMFF. Other countries or countries outside the EU might also have similar programs or sources of funding to help support these activities, which will bring fishermen and various other stakeholders together. So I, for myself, would like to say thank you very much. I don't know, Marco, do you have a word to add, or?
No, I would just say thank you very much for participating today. That's what. Yeah, thank you.
So, well then, with that, we will close this webinar. Thank you very much to our speakers, and also, of course, to the participants for joining in and for being very active. And I hope there will be another opportunity when we can, yeah, get together again. Thank you.